What's poppin', people? It's Dante. Today I have some random thoughts about gear. Gear thoughts. I think gear actually is more important when considering clothing, right? So it's starting to rain a bit here in the city. I've got a raincoat that goes down to my ankles. So yeah, I'm like Darth Maul or someone in Star Wars. But actually, what this allows me is to be outdoors no matter the conditions, right? So for me, to be indoors is a bore. I really do appreciate walking in the day, and if it's gonna rain all day, I at least want to get some steps in. And so having proper clothing in terms of gear is more critical than what camera, what lens, you know, these kind of superfluous things that at the end of the day actually don't really matter. You know, I think in terms of gear, you know, having an umbrella, right? Having an umbrella like readily available, you know, like this is actually more important. You know, like having a hood, right? I have a hood on. I've got a warm hood underneath. I got a hoodie. I've got a down vest. Having layers, you know, these things are maybe more important to consider. And then you'll be able to go out there and make photographs. Gore-Tex shoes, right? I've got these like basic Gore-Tex Asics shoes, and yeah, they keep my feet dry. Warm socks. You know, when it comes to gear, I find it interesting because we get caught up in like what camera to use, what lens to use, all these kind of things. But actually the clothing is more important. I don't know if it's talked about enough in photography. You know, in terms of gear, you know, I got the Ricoh GR3 on a wrist strap. You know, I prefer the wrist strap because I have this mind-body connection to the camera itself. And what this means is, when you want to talk gear talk, like real gear talk, cameras, lenses, and this kind of stuff, just stick to one lens and roll with it. This is why I'm a big fan of the Ricoh, because it has a fixed lens. You know, that's why the X100 is really popular within the street photography world, because, you know, there's less choice. When you have an interchangeable lens camera, you're more tempted maybe to change the lens, and ultimately this, I believe, hinders your street photography progress if you're looking to improve and become a better photographer, right? Now, this might not be everyone's goal. You know, that's completely fine too, right? If you just want to photograph and enjoy the different toys and, you know, play with gear and all this kind of stuff, then so be it. Everyone likes to do this thing their own way, but when it really comes down to the nitty-gritty and improving your photography, sticking to one setup, one lens, one camera, it's one of the most basic notions in street photography, the most basic bits of advice that really does go a long way. And I highly suggest to operate this way, because you become one with the camera. You become one with the camera, the mind-body connection, where when you're on the street, you're not looking at photographs, right? I'm not looking around the world, I'm like, oh, that's a composition, you're merely there, and you're affirming life. You're asking questions about the world and embracing the now. So life is in front of you. The camera is in between you, your two eyes, your mind, your physical body, and the way that you perceive the world. The positioning of your body and the camera when you press the shutter ultimately determines the results of this photograph or this composition, whatever you want to call it. You know, all the technical things, all of the superfluous things like lighting, composition, layering, they become sort of intuitive, right? These things are very intuitive, and you don't really think about it, right? City Hall. So when you're on the street and you're in this state of production, I like to think of street photography as this Zen-like meditative practice. You're merely embracing the now, and when you're using one focal length, when you're using one camera, you're so in tune with the rhythm of this tool and with the rhythm of the street and the life in front of you, right? The beat of the street as you study the feet. you will dance gracefully when choosing a particular focal length for an extended period of time, where I believe it's critical to stick to this one camera setup for a long time. You know, then you will see. But the more that you play with different gear, the more difficult it will become for you to quite literally see. And very windy. Block the wind. Gear. My shield. Wield the umbrella as a shield. Sword and shield. Camera and umbrella. Strike through the heart of Philly and reveal the soul of the streets. You know, I think all this gear stuff, it's all nonsense. Stop thinking about it. Just put one lens on your camera and just roll with it. You'll become in tune with the rhythm and enter a state of flow. This is much more critical. I actually think that when you go slow and you just let life flow towards you, you know, the photographs will come, but you must detach yourself from the outcome and simply enjoy the process of walking, recognizing the mundane nature of life and finding joy in it. Ultimately, photography gives your life more meaning and helps you find beauty in the multifaceted complexities of everyday life. And when it comes to gear, clothing is more important because it'll keep you out there on the front lines of life, where I believe the photographer thrives. You know, it has nothing to do with cameras, it has nothing to do with lenses, it has nothing to do with your composition, it has nothing to do with the way that you put together a frame. But it has everything to do with the connection between yourself and the street and the life that's in front of you, and how you position yourself in front of life, and how close you get to now, where you're simply being. And you forget that there's even a camera in between you and life itself.